Thanks.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marine General Joseph Dunford, is set to meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in tomorrow. The focus of the meeting, of course, will be North Korea. After nearly a week of threatening to rain down fire and fury on North Korea, President Trump may be turning to diplomacy. Trump spoke to China's president late Friday night to urge the Chinese to do more to try to curb North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Yesterday, he spoke with the French President Macron to discuss further economic sanctions against the Hermit Kingdom. This came after the president urged a nonviolent solution and blamed his predecessors for failing to stop North Korea.
Nobody loves a peaceful solution better than President Trump, that I can tell you. Hopefully it'll all work out. But this has been going on for many years. Would have been a lot easier to solve this years ago.
Joining me now is the former Director of National Intelligence, retired General James Clapper. General Clapper, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me.
So you've been critical of some of the rhetoric that President Trump has used when talking about this threat, fire and fury, and the rest. Take a listen to Secretary of State Tillerson trying to explain why the president has talked this way.
What the president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand, because he doesn't seem to understand diplomatic language.
He says using language that Kim Jong-un would understand because Kim Jong-un doesn't understand diplomatic language. Is that a legitimate argument?
Well, Kim Jong-un does understand the nuances of language, and the North Koreans are very adept at conveying messages, many times between the lines. But as a longtime watcher of North Korea and what they say, I think they do understand the diplomatic language, and they get the message.
Your former colleague, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta from the Obama administration, said that the United States is facing the most dangerous situation since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Do you agree?
I'm not sure that it's reached that magnitude. I lived through the tree cutting incident in 1976. I was Air Force intelligence officer at Pacific Command headquarters. And
that was when some North Korean soldiers went into the DMZ and killed some Americans.
Killed two American soldiers. And in comparing that episode with this, I think the imminence of war feeling was much more palpable then than it is today. But it is not to say that this is not potentially a very incendiary situation. In fact, that's when I served in Korea many years ago as the Director of Intelligence of U.S. Forces Korea, what I always worried about was an incendiary event getting out of hand. And we can't know, we don't understand exactly what the decision-making mechanisms are, processes surrounding Kim Jong-un in North Korea, or what would set him off. And that's why I think many people, myself included, would argue for more temperate language than the fire and fury kind of thing.
You just heard Tom Bossert earlier in the show calling for a denuclearized North Korea. We've also heard from Senator Lindsey Graham tweeting this weekend that giving the leader of North Korea the ability to strike the United States with a nuclear-tipped ICBM is simply unacceptable. Now, you're on record saying we have to accept North Korea as a nuclear state. What would your response be to Tom Bossert and to Lindsey Graham, who are saying it's not acceptable?
Ideally, I'd love a denuclearized North Korea, but as I learned when I went there and had some pretty intense dialogue with them, that is a non-starter with them. That is their ticket to survival, and I don't see any way they're going to give it up. So I think our thought process here ought to be on accepting it and trying to cap it or control it. But I think a denuclearized North Korea, I'd love to see it, but I don't think that's in the cards.
The Washington Post reported Tuesday that the Defense Intelligence Agency has determined that North Korea is capable of building miniaturized nuclear weapons that could be used as warheads on ICBMs. Was the Obama administration aware of this capability when you were Director of National Intelligence?
Sure, we forecast this development years ago.
They had not achieved it yet.
That they hadn't achieved it, but that they would. And given the aggressiveness of their pursuit of both missile technology as well as nuclear capability, that it was a question of time before they would achieve the ability to mate a nuclear weapon with a missile. And they've actually been pretty blatantly public about it, with propaganda pictures of Kim Jong-un looking at the warhead, which most experts view as quite credible. So this is not a shocking development and something certainly we forecast some years ago.
Is there anything that you feel that the Obama administration could have done differently that would have been more effective in pushing back on the nuclear weapons ambitions of North Korea?
Well, I was an advocate in the last administration for a more direct approach with North Korea, to the extent of having, for example, or considering, in consultation with our allies, an interest section in Pyongyang, much as we had in Havana for years, to deal with a government that we didn't recognize. And I think there's a lot of advantages to that, it's not a reward for bad behavior, but rather having an in-residence diplomatic presence, gain greater understanding and insight into what's going on in North Korea, which is a problem, was when I was DNI, and I'm sure still is, and importantly, as a conduit for information into North Korea. That wouldn't directly necessarily lead to denuclearization, but it could sure reduce the tension.
You wanted to do that, but it was not done.
No, it wasn't done, and of course that's a hard sell right now, given the atmospherics that exist between North Korea and the United States.
General Clapper, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it as
Thanks,
always.
Dave.
Good to see you. After members of the president's own party criticize the president for failing to call out white supremacists by name, will President Trump change his mind, as Senator Cory Gardner called him to? That's next.